mad. Behind me is the latest Audi RS3, the third installment of the nameplate that we first saw back in 2011, and this car hopes to be more fun than the one it replaces, which, although fast in a straight line and pretty competent on a back road, always felt like a little bit of a lead-tipped arrow. The other thing that may have hurt the old RS3's chances against its competitors were its looks. Although it was handsome, it didn't have the butch presence of the BMW M2, and the new RS3 I think goes a long way to rectifying that. It's not a completely different look, but it's got a 33mm wider front track, and the front grille extends wider and has real air vents both at the front and here on the sides of these boxed arches that make this car look proper serious, proper pucker. Now under those wheel arches are hiding new 19-inch alloy wheels, which I think look great. They're 5 Y-spoke design. They look actually a lot like an aftermarket BBS rim that I probably would have put on the previous gen RS3. And as an interesting touch, they actually have a reverse stagger. That means this car's running a 265mm wide front tyre, a Bridgestone Potenza, and a 245mm wide rear tyre. With its staggered tyre fitment now standard and tricky rear diff, the new RS3 should be a bunch of fun on the skid pan. Let's find out. So, Audi says they've cured the understeer of the RS3. Now that is true, but you can still get it to understeer, but out here on the skid pan, this thing is mint. I'm just gonna rip it in here and see if we can't do a bit of a figure of 8. Full second, off we go. Yes, back the other way. Oh, hold it, Johnny. That's it. Too much. Why are skids so much fun? Enough talking about skids for now, let's check out how this RS3 performs out in the real world. So after driving the RS3 on track and now out here on some twisty roads, how does it stack up? Well, the jewel in this car's crown is that 294 kilowatt, 500 newton meter, 2.5 litre turbo petrol inline 5-cylinder engine. It's a very strange engine configuration in today's modern age where everything's gone to 4 cylinders or 6 cylinders, and for that it stands out, and I really applaud that Audi continues to put this in cars. And although I said at the top this could be the last outing for this engine, it's actually been designed to be Euro 7 compliant, and what that means is that it could keep going on, living on in cars basically a long way into the future, depending on market pressures and who wants it. So if you want 5 cylinders, absolutely let Audi know, because it is a glorious engine. It sounds really unique and it has just a cool character to it, something different. It's also a very smooth engine, so it's quite quiet when you need it to be, but when you get on it like we have been, it's really rewarding. You can hear it bouncing off the limiter when you're on the skid pan going sideways, and yeah, it's great fun. The gearbox as well is so sweet in this car. It's a refined version of the 7-speed dual clutch transmission found in the previous RS3, and it works gorgeously, smooth and slick shifting when you're driving slowly, and then out here on a country road you can take control of it with the paddles. Not that you need to though, because the auto programming is actually really good. We'll circle back around to how this Audi RS3 is to drive as an everyday proposition in a minute, but firstly I want to focus on what it's like to drive quickly, because as I said at the top of this video, the previous gen was good, but it always felt a little bit hamstrung by the heavy engine over the nose and the weight distribution and just a little tendency for understeer. Has that been cured in this car? I think it has. We haven't driven it really extensively yet. It's been quite a quick and abridged drive program down here in Adelaide at this car's Australian launch, so I'll have more to say when we do get this vehicle back to Sydney and hopefully put it into some comparisons with a couple of its closest rivals and drive it on roads that we really know. But initial impressions are really good. It has a nice crisp turn in. It doesn't feel like it's lead tipped. It feels like it kind of dances around on its feet. Yes, you can still get it to understeer, but its general stance through a corner definitely feels fairly neutral. It's not an understeery, plowy pig. It doesn't feel like there's a heap of weight over the front axle, even though there is. The steering's nice and light and responsive, and it is a fun car to drive on a back road. And the addition of that fantastic twin clutch limited slip rear differential means that this thing is just that much more adjustable for a driver. You can really play with its balance a little bit more from mid-corner, lay into the throttle, hear the sound of that glorious 5-cylinder engine, which is such a unique proposition in today's market that is flooded with fairly boring 4-cylinder engines and perhaps some slightly more sparkling 6-cylinder engines, but it has a unique character all to its own, much like half of a V10, which is kind of essentially exactly what it sounds like. And it means this car is just kind of fun and interesting, and it makes you want to drive it quickly, and that's always been the case for the RS3, especially as you'll know if you live in Sydney. You can see people who drive them fairly quickly everywhere. But yeah, no, it's a really impressive car. I think they've done a great job in transforming it. We had it out on the track yesterday. Again, a limited time on track, so it's difficult to say how it's going to hold up over time, over extended abuse. You can option carbon ceramic brakes on this car as well, though I will say the standard steel brakes feel perfectly up to the job. They're 375mm cross-drilled and ventilated front discs clamped by 6 piston calipers, and they do a really good job of standing this car on its nose. And the brake pedal feel is also quite good. It is a little soft, but you can still modulate really nicely and get it to dance into a corner quite well, and really adjust, playing with that balance on under trail braking. And yeah, it's fun like that. So I think Audi's done a cool job with this thing, and yeah, that torque splitter rear diff, it is a really fun thing to drive, and yeah, just a little bit gimmicky, but you know, as a whole, the fact that it can send your rear wheels just a little bit overdriven like that on the exit of a corner is kind of fun. It feels safe and secure, but just a little bit gnarly, and I think that extra bit of excitement sprinkled on the Audi RS3's rest of the package means that, yeah, it's really come a long way since the previous generation car. Putting aside the fun stuff, the twisty road driving and the on-track stuff, what really matters a lot of the time for the Audi RS3 is going to be how it deals with the mundane stuff, the everyday driving, cruising through town, driving on freeways and all that sort of stuff, because it's always been a hallmark of fast Audis that although they may be fun on a twisty back road and pretty decent on track, they must be comfortable and usable every day. This truly is an everyday car, this Audi RS3, and I'm happy to report the new one hasn't sacrificed any of its usability in gaining that extra crispness when it comes to turning through corners, because this car is still really comfortable and usable every day. The adaptive suspension, when you relax it out of its RS modes or dynamic modes back to either auto mode or to comfort mode, does a really great job of insulating the driver and the passengers from nasty bumps outside without really sacrificing any control. Comfort is a little bit soft for my tastes for, you know, driving on the freeway or high-speed backcountry roads. I just feel like the dampers are a little soft for the amount of spring rate, but around town, that's kind of what you want, that extra little breathability that comes from having softer rebound damping, and it just makes the RS3 feel super easy to live with every day. Yes, there is a little bit of tyre roar and road noise that gets into the cabin, but honestly, compared to this car's rivals like the A45 and the BMW M2, this thing is way more refined than either of those cars. Now, if you're looking in a similar price range from Audi, you can also get an S4 Avant or an S5 Sportback or an S4 sedan even, which might be an interesting alternative to this thing, but they don't quite have the personality of the RS. They're definitely going to suit a different buyer, and I think if you want the RS3, then you probably already know that you want the RS3, and that's going to be the one that you get. Now, what about the safety gear? Because this RS3 does have plenty of that. We've got adaptive cruise control that is really nicely tuned. It works beautifully out on the highway, and the lane keep assist as well is very grown up feeling. It doesn't sort of bounce you between lanes at all, it just keeps you there and holds the steering wheel nice and straight so that you can get on with the task of relaxing and enjoying the road trip ahead of you. You've also got a 5-star ANCAP rating for the A3, S3 and RS3 range, with niceties like front and rear parking sensors, blind spot monitoring, and things like front and rear cross traffic alert with AEB with pedestrian, cyclist and junction detection for this car. So it's got a full complement of everything you need. And yeah, I've got to say, the fact that the RS3 can combine that really fun backroad driving with everyday usability makes it a very, very interesting vehicle. And I think, yeah, it's going to definitely be a different kind of buyer who goes for this compared to something like a BMW M2 or a Mercedes-AMG A45S. But if you are honest with yourself and need to use your car every day and don't go to the racetrack all that much, then I think the RS3 might be the pick of the bunch, even though it doesn't perhaps have quite that same aggressive, angry vibe to it that an M2 does, it is still plenty characterful. That 5-cylinder engine is so gorgeous to listen to, and you can hear it just cruising around, coming into the cabin and making a really nice, pleasant and refined sound, especially with the active exhaust flap open when you're in dynamic mode, but even when you're just cruising around town in low gears, you can just hear it burbling away, and it's just such a nice accompaniment to drive, and it's something we're definitely going to lose when we go to electric vehicles. So if you're looking for your last great combustion car and you're really interested in an Audi with all-wheel drive grip and the RS3 badge, then I think the latest one certainly would do the trick. Inside the RS3's interior, it doesn't really break away from its A3 underpinnings, but that's actually no bad thing. The latest A3 may not be finished to quite the same high standard as the previous car, but it's still really well built in here, and the technology integration is just fantastic. It's so simple, and it's really difficult to believe that this is based on the same platform as the Volkswagen Golf, because this 10.1-inch touchscreen is so much more responsive. You've got this lovely haptic feedback when you use it as well. It makes it feel a little bit more physical and nicer to interact with. You've also got stuff like wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which works flawlessly in this thing. And you've got a 15-speaker, 680-watt Bang & Olufsen stereo that does a really nice job of rendering your favorite music. Below that, we do have physical controls for the HVAC system, and that's something that makes interacting with this car just so simple, so easy. You've got 3-stage heating for these seats as well, which are appointed in Napa leather. Now, the car I'm sitting in right now is pretty blinged out. As I mentioned before, the color outside is Kyalami green, and it's really set off in here with the optional RS design package and RS Plus package, which costs $7,400 in total. But if you like the bling that you get in here, the contrast green stitching, Alcantara steering wheel, and the carbon fiber mirrors and rear spoilers you get on this car, then I think it's worth it, because ultimately the RS3 isn't actually crazy expensive when compared to its direct rival, the Mercedes-AMG A45. This car in Sportback hatch form starts at just over $90,000, and the sedan's a couple of $1,000s more expensive, and it really does feel like this is not that far removed from an Audi RS6 in terms of interior fit and finish, a car that costs pretty much twice what this thing does. So I think Audi's done a great job of bringing value to their small vehicle. Now, in front of me as well, I got to touch on the fantastic 12.3-inch digital drives display, which has real satellite mapping, and it just works fantastically. Finally, the seats that I mentioned before are actually really supportive, out on track, and are very comfortable to spend longer times in as well. Now, the back seat of the RS3 isn't the best seat of the house. You want to be in the driver's seat, but for someone a little shorter than me, I'm 6'2", this might not be too bad. Now, I do fit behind myself slightly better in a Volkswagen Golf R. I'm not sure if that's because of the seat design or the rear backrest is just a little bit more spacious in that vehicle, but still it's doable back here in the RS3. You've also got really supportive bench and backrest that feels very nice and comfortable. So if you were fitting in here with your legs in a comfortable position, you could fit here for a decent length of time. Now, the only thing that really does hurt the backseat of this car a little bit is the fact that at over $100,000, we'd expect to see some soft interior plastics back here. But hey, I guess you could say that Audi spent the money where it counts on the driving experience of this car. Plus, you do still have really nice little Alcantara inserts here, and a comfortable pad to rest your arm on, and a flip down armrest, as well as a pair of air vents and 2 USB-C fast charging ports. The rear of the RS3 Sportback looks absolutely fantastic in my opinion. You can let me know your thoughts down below. As in the interior, we've got more carbon pack stuff up here as part of that $7,400 options package for this Sportback, which brings you this really rather rude looking spoiler, but I think it sets off the Kyalami green really nicely. Black badging as well. You've got lovely sequential indicators and gorgeous LED lighting details back here. You've also got one of the hallmarks of Audi's RS3, and that of the twin pair of oval tailpipes. Now, the ends of them aren't exactly connected to the rest of the exhaust, but they are real, and there's also a new active exhaust system that should make this car really nice and loud when we get to try it out on the road, even though there is a petrol particulate filter fitted to this particular vehicle, as there was at the end of the last car's life. Now, let's pop this boot, which is power operated, and we actually find a really usable space back here. No, it's not going to replace the family wagon, but you can fit plenty of stuff back here. You've got a net fitted to this particular example and a couple of tie down points and curry hooks, and it is very nicely finished back here. The only problem is that you don't have a space saver or full-size spare tire, but that kind of comes with the territory of having that trick limited slip rear differential under the boot floor. The Audi A3 isn't going to be as affordable to run as its S3 or A3 siblings. No, this car has a thirstier engine, but at 8.3 litres per 100 kilometres, and when it's fitted with a petrol particulate filter, it's not actually too bad for this Sportback. The sedan and is slightly more fuel efficient, recording 8.2 litres per 100 kilometres in the ADR combined cycle. In real-world testing, we've seen about 10 litres per 100 Ks in brisk but not abusive driving, and I think that's pretty decent for the amount of power on offer from this engine. As for servicing, it's due every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres, and it's going to cost you $3,850 for 5 years or 75,000 Ks. The warranty on this vehicle is capped at 5 years or unlimited kilometres as a default. However, Audi now allows you to extend that warranty by 2 years with servicing included for $3,800, so you can bring this car's total warranty lifetime up to 9 years. And I reckon that's a great initiative, but it does mean you have to service it at an Audi dealership. So, is the new Audi RS3 the giggle-inducing hyperhatch we've always wanted it to be? Well, when you've got it out on a skid pan, I can say absolutely. The trick rear twin clutch limited slip differential that's fitted to this vehicle makes it a joy to slide around and means the driver has plenty more adjustment out on the road as well. Not to mention that the front end just feels more stuck down owing to that slightly wider track, revised geometry, and of course that reverse stagger of the tyre fitment of this car, which is an interesting choice. Now, is it as much fun? Is it as scary as a BMW M2? I still don't think that's the case, but we'll have to test that next year when the new M2 comes to Australia and we get these two together to give them a proper comparison. But what I do know is that this Audi RS3 is shaping up to be a fantastic everyday proposition. Feels properly premium, comfortable, polished and poised out on the road without sacrificing much comfort on the bumpy stuff, and I think that should be applauded. But I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below of what you think of the Audi RS3's 5-cylinder engine and that new limited slip diff. And while you're there letting me know your opinions, why not hit subscribe if you haven't done so already, and as always, thank you very much for watching Chasing Cars.